There's a lot of questions about Gavin Lux, about shortstop, about Mookie Betts. I'm going to try to get into all of them because we asked you for questions and that's what you wanted to talk about. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And you can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio, usually joined by co-host Jeff Snyder, but Jeff is out today. It's just me, and Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have been watching the Dodgers our whole lives, been covering the Dodgers for the last decade of our lives or so, and been doing this podcast for half of that decade. So we're not quite insiders. We're not quite, anything more than just fans who are really into the team that are trying to be more knowledgeable, help you be more knowledgeable, and bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue. And that's what I'm going to try to get into today because we put out a call for questions to our Locked On Dodgers insiders and to the general public on social media. And the overwhelming response of questions happened to do with Mookie Betts, Gavin Lux, and the shortstop position for the Dodgers. There was some other questions in there that we can get to, but let's just hop right into it because, like I said, there was a lot of questions about this. Some of these questions will overlap a little bit, but I'm just going to get into them and start running through it. So our first one comes from Locked On Dodgers insider Elliot, and Elliot asks, he says he knows that we are okay with Mookie at shortstop, but he hasn't been looking great, and he was anticipating a possible Gold Glove at second. While Mookie's a great athlete, shortstop is a tough position. Do we think that we're better off keeping Mookie at second and putting up with Rojas, so at least we have a great glove, or rotating Kike in there sometimes, adds Lux is a solid hitter, but when the bottom of our lineup is already very strong, can we give up the 9 position and give it to Rojas? Thoughts? We've mentioned this. We've talked about this specifically of keeping Gavin Lux's bat in the lineup and how important it is. And I think it's one of those things where this is how they're going to start the season. Whoever is the opening day starter doesn't even have to be guaranteed to be the starter the next game, the next week, the next month, or in July or in August or in October. Like, they're not married to anything other than what they're in right now. And what they're in right now is Mookie Betts will be the shortstop, Gavin Lux likely the second baseman, at least for now. And that's how they're going to move forward. They mentioned potential platoon for Lux, which would mean against left-handed pitching, we might see Rojas in there, we might see Kike in there, we could see Chris Taylor in there. There's a lot of different options. But, yeah, Mookie doesn't look natural right now at shortstop. And that's probably likely from the fact that he played right field his entire major league career. Hadn't been an everyday shortstop since he was 18. Hadn't been an everyday infielder since a year or two after that. Then when he was in the majors, he played mostly right field. And for the Dodgers, mostly right field until last year when they kind of needed him to play infield. So he doesn't look natural at the position right now. I will admit that. But I do think that, we give it some time. We haven't seen enough of it. And to go from being the everyday second baseman to kind of overnight saying, hey, you know what, you're going to be the everyday shortstop. Not easy. He missed that first backhand we talked about. He's, made the routine plays. He's tried to make other plays, and there's just a lot to go with it. But I think for now, that's what they're going to run through. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with figuring out, can Mookie Betts be an everyday shortstop? And if the answer is no, then yeah, Gavin Lux's bat doesn't necessarily matter too much if he can't play shortstop either. and they'll move Mookie back to second base. If that was the case, they'll put Rojas or Kike or Chris Taylor rotating at shortstop, and they'll get by unless they make a trade because there's really nobody in the minor leagues to come up and kind of fill that role. So it's a matter of wait and see right now. And I know that's not the best way to handle things, especially with the team of this caliber that, where all the pieces are around. But I do think that they built this team all the way around, and this is the one weakness. Sometimes the weakness is starting pitching like last year because of all the injuries and everything. Now, sometimes the weakness is, in the outfield where they've had issues in the past. Sometimes the weakness is in the infield. And right now, I think the overall weakness of this team is defense up the middle, and that's what it comes down to. So I say give it some time. Again, I can admit that Mookie doesn't look 100% natural at shortstop, but he can make the plays. And realistically, if he can just make the routine plays, an occasional good play here and there, that's good enough for this team and good enough for the Dodgers, I would imagine. Now, if he becomes an issue, 2 weeks, a month in, they might have to start evaluating that, and we'll see what happens. The other part of this is that they could go to different defense in the later innings if they do have a lead or if they are in a close game, and maybe you do get Miguel Rojas at shortstop for a few innings, Mookie back over to second base, and then if a big at bat comes up, they could pinch hit somebody else if they need to. If Rojas spot comes up in the lineup, and then you can put Mookie back at shorter, you'll have Taylor or Kike at least there to fill in if need be. So there's a lot of different options for the Dodgers. I think this is the best one at the moment without having to hit the panic button and trade unnecessary prospects for a shortstop from around the league. So that's what they're going with, and I think that's fine for now. It's not. It could be the solution for the season, or it could not be, but we don't know. And I think that we're going to find out. All right. So that's what's going to happen there. We got one here from Locked On Dodgers insider Troy, and he says maybe Lux needs to do what the catcher in Major League 2 did when he couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher, start reciting magazine articles. He actually does seem like he does okay when he doesn't have time to think about the throw. And this is actually something I hadn't mentioned on the podcast, but I've definitely thought about it. If you haven't seen Major League 2, well, one, go watch it because it's a great movie, and Major League 1 is even greater movie. But basically, there's a catcher can't throw back to the pitcher, and in order to get his mind off throwing it back to the pitcher, they introduced to him magazine articles, and he might be like a lingerie or something like that, so where he's looking and then remembering things about the facts about it or parts of the article, whatever it was, and then he figures it out. And I think, yeah, there's something there to unlock mentally. And I know Jeff doesn't agree that the yips never go away. I am of the matter that the yips, or Jeff is of the mind that the yips do go away. I'm of the mind that the yips never go away, but you're kind of able to hold it down. Sometimes you can hold it down the rest of your career. Sometimes you don't. Lux, this is the second time where he's kind of had issues throwing, and it kind of feels like it starts off mentally. And I'm sure they're doing a lot of things. He's working on a lot of things. He's talking to a lot of people, and it's going to come to a point where, yeah, he has to make those throws, or he's not going to be in the starting lineup, and that's going to be tough, for him to kind of think about every time he gets the ball. But he has to figure something out, and it could be as simple as thinking of something else while he's throwing. It could be as simple as what I don't think it is a matter of reps. I've seen some people kind of mention on social media, why isn't Lux taking hundreds and hundreds of reps at second base and throwing the ball and everything else. And I don't think the issue has been throwing during practice. I don't, I was on the backfields over the weekend, and Lux made a few throws, turned up double play. He made a few throws from second base. Didn't seem to have huge issues or any issue or, any big issues like he's had on the field. I do think it happens when it gets to being on the field, and that's tough. And it's not something that can just be whisked away. And there is, probably some mental I'm trying to think of the word I want to say, but there is some mental key unlock to unlock it, whatever the cliche you want to say. But yeah, I think there's something there that I can get to him. And if not, like I mentioned just before this, I think the Dodgers will have to make that move. And whether it's Mookie back second and they solidify shortstop, or they keep Mookie at short and, throw a mixed bag at second base. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, there's definitely something that hopefully happens for Lux here coming up. So there is more questions about Lux and shortstop. There was, some other news that we can get into after that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with the 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risks, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. I would recommend, the 16 over 1 seed has only happened, I believe, twice ever in the tournament. So go ahead, put your $5 on that 1 seed, get your $200 in bonus bets, and then put your bets on some of those 13 over 4 or 12 over 5s. That's where the upsets happen. That's where some money can be made. And remember, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just go to fanduel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And as you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. And baseball fans, mark your calendar for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern. Be the first to get local insight from MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. The Locked On Sports Today 24 streaming channel can be found on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, let's get into more questions about the Dodgers and Gavin Lux. So this one comes from Twitter at Tyler A. Hawk. Says, where do you think Lux ends up? Seems as if he's in a bit of a weird spot right now. Kevin, our buddy Blue Goon 82 says, what is Lux's role this year and the future if Betts fails at shortstop and has to move back to second base? A move to the outfield, trade bait, ? Yeah, I think Lux is in a weird spot right now. He needs to perform defensively at second base. And even if he does so, even if he's fine at second base and hits well, if Mookie struggles defensively at shortstop, I think the Dodgers would have to make that move to put him back at second base and put someone else at shortstop. And it likely wouldn't be Lux since he's not going to work at shortstop anymore. So I do think he's in a little bit of a tough spot, but all he can do is play well defensively and offensively and leave it up to everything else to kind of work out. In regards to it, I mean, he does have a minor league option. The Dodgers could try him back in the outfield. They tried it, a few years ago. It didn't quite work out, but that was in season and, kind of a tough adjustment. Lux assuming he comes back 100% from, getting all his agility and everything back after the knee surgery, he has the athleticism to be able to be a good outfielder, or at least a competent outfielder. But it would just take a lot of work. And I think I've seen some people even mention before, like, how come it was so easy for Tatis to do it and everything else. And if you don't remember, Tatis did have some struggles early on. He made up for it with his athleticism, but he really struggled on getting to the ball initially in the outfield. If he wasn't so fast and so athletic, he would have had a tougher time out there, and he kind of figured it out. But he had time. He worked on it he knew he was going to come back to shortstop. He had all the time to work on it in the outfield, and when he came back, he was ready to go. And I think that's probably the next step for Lux. If that was the case, I guess best case scenario is that Lux does hit well, and if the Mookie at shortstop doesn't work out and they have to move him back and Lux becomes a bench player again, then he would have trade value at the very least. And the Dodgers could use him in a potential trade for another shortstop or something, to remedy the situation. So for me, I think that's where it's at. Lux is in a tough spot, and all he can do is be good at what he's supposed to do. And even if he is good at what he's supposed to do, it might not be enough, but that's all you can really do. And with the team that's kind of built like this, that's the nature of the situation. Like if they can find an upgrade, they'll find an upgrade. And, realistically, that's the only spot they could legitimately upgrade. Maybe right field, they could legitimately upgrade if they really wanted to, or, two spots in the infield, move Mookie back to right, whatever the case is. But, that's just the nature of the beast and the situation they're in right now. And, that's what we have to go with. We have another Mookie question at Chris11372007. What's a realistic expectation of Betts as a shortstop? Does his superb athleticism suggest he could be a good defensive shortstop? Like I said, it hasn't looked necessarily natural, and that's okay. He's getting used to the position. I think the one thing, and again, that this is, you can look at it a few different ways, but the one thing on the Dodgers side is that Mookie wants to play infield. Mookie has said the word happy or some combination or some form of that word a lot when talking about playing infield. And this is a move that he wanted. I know there was a lot of complaints about how could you move your Gold Glove right fielder into the infield and all that. But at the end of the day, like, Mookie also wants this. He wants to play infield. He's very happy being infield, and I'm not sure he would have chosen to go about it this route where he was a second baseman for nearly all of camp. And then the last week he has to switch over to shortstop. But at the end of the day, he's going to work at it. And, he talks about taking ground balls before, in morning workouts, and then, before the game. And then after the game, he's doing more workouts, and, he's trying to be the best guy he can be. And while I don't think Gold Glove shortstop is necessarily in his realm right now, I do think he can be a competent shortstop, make all the routine plays, a couple of good plays here and there, and that's as much as they can ask for right now. And I think the one question I have is kind of that arm strength on balls, deep in the hole and stuff like that. We haven't seen him let it rip yet. I don't know if that's from lack of comfort or lack of arm strength. Jeff kind of mentioned before that maybe Mookie has lost a little bit of that arm strength, but I want to, all we have to see is a ball deep in the hole. Mookie lets it rip, and we'll see exactly what he can do at shortstop. Obviously, he has to field that ball first, but I think that he can be a competent shortstop, and they can make this work. Obviously, competent is not the word that we expect when it comes to the Dodgers, but sometimes you're not going to have above average, extraordinary at every position, hitting and defense. You're going to have extraordinary defense and competent hitting, or competent defense and extraordinary hitting. So I think that's what it's going to come down to. And we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, that's really the main gist of all this is right now, Mookie Betts is a shortstop, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we can only bet on Mookie. And if I'm going to bet on Mookie or bet against Mookie, I'm going to bet on Mookie to be a starting caliber shortstop on defense. Again, I don't know if Gold Glove is in, his vicinity right now, but I definitely think he can be an everyday shortstop. Another question about it from our buddy Kevin again at Blue Goon 82. Chris Taylor might be the best overall option for shortstop if Betts fails there. Average defensive shortstop, average bat. Does he get a chance of being the shortstop, or is Rojas the next plan? I do think if Mookie doesn't work out at shortstop, I do think Rojas plays short and Mookie moves to second, and that's what they go with. Chris Taylor, like you mentioned, solid enough on defense, solid enough at the plate. But I do think the Dodgers would rather have above average defense and maybe below average at the plate, considering what the rest of the lineup is. Like you're going to have Mookie and Ohtani and Freddie and Will Smith and Muncy and Teoscar, Outman hopefully can build on his rookie season. And you're going to have a lot of different options. And I think that's really what it comes down to, where if your number 9 hitter has an OPS under 100, OPS plus under 100, you can survive that way as long as everybody else is heading to their mat. Now, if there's a bunch of slumps and you have Rojas in the lineup, yeah, that's going to be tough, but you're not going to count on that. You're going to count on everybody being, playing to their best ability, playing to their potential, and that does make the number 9 slot a little bit more expendable. And like I mentioned this before, but Rojas did have above average bat over the last month, 6 weeks of the season. That's a smaller sample size, obviously, than the entire season. And the fact of the matter is that he has 66 OPS plus over the entire season. So even if those last 6 weeks were good, that's how bad he was before that. But again, you don't need to have above average hitting 1 through 9. 1 through 8 is good enough. And if that's what the Dodgers need to do in order to maximize their defensive ability, I think that's something they're going to do. So appreciate that. Seeing if we had any more questions about this. I don't think so. I think that was all the questions about this. It took up most of the episode, but it was a lot of things that we've kind of touched on lightly, but not fully got into it. So hopefully I was able to get into it enough for everybody. And I know there was a lot of questions about Yamamoto. We'll get into that on Monday's episode. There's definitely some thoughts and some questions about him. And, we addressed it a little bit yesterday's episode, but more to come. So if you asked a question and we didn't get to it, just know that we will get to it on Monday's episode. One question real quick that we got from a Locked On Dodgers insider from our guy, Dan. He asked, how's Blake Trinan? Blake Trinan was on the plane to go to Korea. So as far as we know, he is good to go, or at least good enough to try to go. So that's what we know now. Yeah. All right. There's a chance the Dodgers could start the season somewhere else next year. And we learned a little bit more about Shohei Ohtani's wife. That was the talk of the day when the Dodgers didn't have any games on Thursday. So we're going to get into that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, live games, highlights, in-depth analysis, and more. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as a Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV and provides access to millions of movies, TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Fire TV has also gotten into Fire TV channels, which deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. There's also great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. So check out Fire TVs on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you really should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. We want to thank you for being an everydayer. That's someone that listens or watches every day. We want to thank you if you're a Locked On Dodgers insider and remind you that you can become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/lockedondodgers. You get news and updates, thoughts and reactions from us on everything Dodgers. You can ask us questions directly. You get priority for some of these mailbag episodes and everything else. And once season starts, you'll get some exclusive looks from pregame at Dodger Stadium when I'm there. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers and become a Locked On Dodgers insider. All right, let's finish up with a couple notes. While the Dodgers didn't have a game and didn't have any breaking news, Shohei Ohtani gave us a little bit of, I guess you can call it news. At least that's what everyone treated it as, when he posted a photo where it looked like his wife. He was taking a photo with his wife and Yamamoto and Ippei and everybody else. The Dodgers ended up, posting more photos later of Shohei Ohtani and his wife, and we found out that she is, or some of us found out, some of us had confirmations of those internet sleuths, because I know that someone had kind of thought about it or mentioned it before. But yeah, Shohei Ohtani hard launched his wife as the team went to Seoul, and her name is Mamiko Tanaka. She's a former professional basketball player that played in the Women's Japan Basketball League. I know there was some footage of her playing in the FIBA 3x3. She no longer plays basketball professionally, and yeah, she's pretty tall. I think 5'11" is what they said. Ohtani looks happy. She looks happy, and it was definitely the talk of the town on social media and everything else. And I'm sure the Japanese media and TV were going crazy with it as well. So congrats to them again, and hopefully we get to see more of her and maybe get to get a peek into her personality a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. The other note we have is an article from Dylan Hernandez from the LA Times, and the topic of the article says Shohei Ohtani became a, quote, a being above the clouds in Hokkaido, how the locals can reclaim him. And it kind of talks about, Ohtani and where he's from, which is Hokkaido, or where he played, and kind of how he's become not just it says he no longer represents Hokkaido, he represents all Japanese people. And that comes from the Nippon Ham Fighters broadcaster Shinji Daito. The article goes on, basically just talking about Ohtani and the effect he has in Japan, and how he's moved to the Dodgers and everything else. But there's a nugget in there that says that team officials believe the Dodgers will be chosen to start their 2025 campaign in Japan, according to people familiar with their thinking, unauthorized to speak publicly. The planned series is expected to be played at the Tokyo Dome. So which, as much as we don't love the Dodgers going on these long fights, because we do think of Kershaw in 2014 in Australia, playing in Japan would be awesome for Ohtani, for Yamamoto, for the Dodgers. Korea is a big, strong fan base. In Japan, it might be a little bit stronger, or at least on par, but definitely has the second best league. And Japan's won the World Baseball Classic a handful of times, so there's a lot of love for baseball out there. We've seen the love for Ohtani specifically, Yamamoto specifically, and yeah, for the Dodgers to get to start the season out there would be really, really cool, especially playing at the Tokyo Dome, which we if you know about Japanese baseball, one of the more famous places. It also mentions that the Dodgers could visit the fighters, the fighters, and Mark Ohtani's return to Hokkaido, which would be really cool for him, and get back to where he's from, and play for all the people that saw him growing up and saw him, kind of start his rise into the ranks of best baseball player in the world, and kind of where he's at now. So while it would be tough for Dodgers, I'm sure travel wise and everything else, it wasn't. The Dodgers did get off to a little bit slow start in 2014, but it wasn't a huge issue. And Kershaw did win MVP that year after he did get hurt. And we'll see if, nothing goes wrong with these games here in Korea. And, for the Dodgers to be considered one of the premier brands, at least now with Ohtani and Yamamoto, and to start the season in Japan would really, really be cool, and definitely something, I could have maybe went to Korea, but it just wasn't in the cards, and but I think Japan, I would make it be in the cards if that was the case. That's really somewhere, that'd be great to visit and kind of experience that environment. I would love to be there to experience an actual game for the MPB, but to see the Dodgers out there would be really great too. So we can just wait and see if that gets announced at any point during the season, and start saving up if you want to consider going to Japan to see the Dodgers next year. If these team officials that spoke on anonymity are right. So yeah. That's all. Like I mentioned, there was more questions. We'll get into that on Monday's episode. The Dodgers will probably have some workouts over the weekend, a couple press conferences, but nothing more than that. I don't believe. Maybe an exhibition game on Sunday. All the days and times are kind of mixed up because they're so far ahead out there. But either way, we'll have everything covered for you back on Monday. And if not, we'll get into all these questions that you guys have. Specifically about Yamamoto too. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thank you for watching today's episode or listening. And we appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to drop a comment, leave your thoughts, leave any questions or anything you may have. If you are listening, you can also leave those via email at lockedondodgers@gmail.com or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. You can always also send those on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers, Instagram at Locked On Dodgers, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Remember, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles are two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, talking about the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world, available for you 24/7. So go check those out. And remember, you can become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. You can text with us directly, get news, reactions, thoughts, ask us any questions you may have once we get into season. There's a lot of different things you can get into, and you can have that direct access to Jeff and I. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. And remember that you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.